SDPB brings South Dakotans together, telling the stories that unite small towns, big ideas, and the people who make our state shine. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Joint Committee on Appropriations. I'm Representative Mike Derby, the lead co-chair this year, along with my co-chair, Senator Otten. And as we do every morning, we start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Senator Lapke, could you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to welcome all of our internet listeners on South Dakota Public Broadcasting, and a reminder to please make sure your cell phones are off, and lobbyists must be wearing badges for the organization they're representing. Testifiers, please sign in on the register, and the pages can help you with that. All testimony and questions will be addressed through the chair. At this time, I'd like to have the secretary call the roll.
Senators and Representatives Miss Gimmons.
Here.
Auk.
Here.
Casson. Here. Moore. Here. Vilhauer. Here. Carly.
Here.
Voita. Here. Jorgensen.
Here.
Howard. Foster. Here. Sharda.
Here.
Mucky. Here. Zickmund. Kolbeck.
Here.
Norstrup.
Here.
Lapke.
Here.
Otten.
Here.
Derby.
Here.
16 present, 2 absent.
Okay, thank you. And we have some minutes. Representative Moore.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes of Monday, February 9th, 2026.
Second.
We passed 9 bills out of committee.
That's short and sweet. Motion to approve the minutes by Representative Moore, seconded by Representative Sharda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we'd like to have our pages please come up front here and introduce yourself and where you're from, some of your future plans, and hobbies. What's your favorite hobby?
Hello, my name is Owen Kaufman. I live in Mitchell, South Dakota. I attend Mitchell Christian High School. After high school, I've been accepted to Mitchell Tech for Powerline, and then I hope to do substation after that. And one hobby for me is that I love hunting and fishing. So.
All right. Fantastic.
I'm Taryn Torsney. I'm from Tyndall, South Dakota. I go to Bonhomme High School. I just signed on to the Army National Guard.
Oh.
And one of my hobbies is riding horse.
All right, fantastic. Hooah. Okay, Personal privilege, Representative Casson.
Yeah, personal privilege, Mr. Chair.
Granted.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, today we have our friends in red from USD Day, or from USD. It is USD Day at the Capitol. I'm not quite sure who gave them the advice that this is the place they should go today, but you know, we welcome them, and please give me a hand and welcome to the Capitol.
We've got a little bit of time. Do you want to come up and introduce yourself and what you do?
I'm Mike Moran. I'm the Director of Compliance in Athletics at the University of South Dakota. I've been at USD now, I think I'm starting my 17th year. I've had 3 different positions at USD, starting in the admissions office, working in the registrar's office, and now overseeing all of NCAA compliance as it relates to athletics. My wife is from Vermillion. That's how I ended up here, originally from Wisconsin, and just happy to be here.
We're happy to have you here. Next.
Chad Berger. I live in T, resident of South Dakota since 1979 when I was born.
Go Titans.
Go Titans. And I teach at the Beacom School of Business. I teach business analytics, and I've been there since 2020. And one of my hobbies is I really enjoy going to sporting events.
All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Jong Song Yoon.
There you go.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jong Song Yoon. I'm Associate Professor, Psychology Department at USD. I'm originally from South Korea. I worked in U.S. Army as a Korean soldier. It's one of my kind of fun facts. And I came United States 2000 to get my PhD from Florida State University, so go Noles. And then I came up here 2019. And I play tennis a lot, but I got my tennis elbow, so I'm taking a break now. Yeah, I'm just here. You know, I like numbers, so you know I'm Asian, so I'm good at numbers. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah. So, glad to see you. Yeah.
Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you so much, and 감사합니다. Thank you for being here.
My name is Nilda Lima Alvarez. I am from Sioux Falls. My bachelor's is in special education and elementary education. I am currently pursuing a master's as an advanced specialist in disabilities as well. That's about it.
Wow, fantastic.
Chris, they're all here because they followed me. I knew Chris was here and Eric was here. I'm like, we got to go watch. I'm Rhonda Widener. I live by Elk Point, originally from Winter, so I'm a West River girl to heart still. I work with admissions. I process all the graduate school applications for almost everybody that is there except law school and a few specialty OT programs and stuff like that. So, but it's a great day to be at the Capitol. I used to be with alumni, so I would always come here for D-Day, USD Day, when I was at the alumni office for 6 years. So it was a little flashback coming up yesterday, and it's like I always enjoyed that day, so it'll be a good day.
That's fantastic. Yes, so personal privilege. I graduated from USD in December of 1978 with a business management degree, so go Yotes. All right, let's continue. Any other introductions or announcements? Very good. Okay, we're going to go into our budget hearing. Project Bison, Bureau of Finance and Management. Welcome, Commissioner. Please introduce yourself and your team.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I tell you what, it's nice to have a few Yotes in the room. They're kind of few and far between out here in central South Dakota, and so it's good to have the USD at the Capitol here today. My name is Jim Twilliger with the Bureau of Finance and Management. Here to give an update, and I'm not going to bore you with myself up here. We have Jason Lutz and Colin Keeler, I think, that are going to get up here after I'm done and go through, really give you all a good update on Project Bison, kind of some of the history and kind of where we're at. It's been a long road for Project Bison. A lot of folks have put a ton of effort into this project up to this point, and we still have a ways to go. And so, you know, I really wanted to, first of all, thank the committee for all the support. We had 2 bills last week, Senate Bill 72 and 73. Appreciate the support on those 2 bills related to Project Bison. And really the support of this project over the last several years. It's a multi-year effort. And so with that, I'll stand down and ask, I think Mr. Lutz and Mr. Keeler up, and they will give you all things Project Bison related. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jason Lutz with the Bureau of Finance and Management. I serve as project manager on the state side for Project Bison. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you here today. We've also got Lindy Garretts, who's also with Project Bison. She serves as a deputy project manager. I'll be helping out with the slideshow this morning. So this morning we'll be covering the history and scope of Bison briefly, focusing on some key progress and initiatives, upcoming milestones, and project-to-date expenses. We'll start with a quick overview of some of the key milestones that brought us Project Bison. In 2021, the legislature authorized funding for an ERP feasibility study, which recommended that the state move forward with acquiring a modern ERP system. In 2022, additional funding supported pre-implementation planning, including beginning to build out the Bison team, educating state staff, and preparing for the project ahead, activities often referred to as year 0. In 2023, the legislature appropriated funds to procure and implement the system. That year, we conducted a statewide request for information to explore available solutions and began developing the request for proposals for software, the system integrator, project management advisory services, and independent verification and validation services.
Senator Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just curious, this has obviously been in the works or been considered for a long time. And in 2021, finally the session, bit the bullet and started moving forward. Was there anything that, the straw that broke the camel's back, that all of a sudden concluded that we got to do something, or just a continuation of smaller things that led to this?
Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question, Senator. It was a collection of things. One of the main drivers was the outdating of our current technology. We've got folks that our current mainframe system, the vendor support for that will be going away in the coming years. Also, just the knowledge of folks that can support the system that we have today is also fading. The COBOL language, very few folks are trained on that anymore in schools or coming up. So a number of items such as those two led to that discussion. And in that discussion, as you point out, didn't just start in the 2021 session. It was probably 10 years in the making to get to the point where we engaged a firm to come and conduct that survey. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So by 2024, we had completed our vendor selection and officially launched Project Bison with strong support from state legislature and state leadership. This timeline highlights the careful planning and staged approach that set the foundation for the implementation effort we're actively executing today. This slide outlines the major functional areas and modules included within Bison's overall scope. Many of these areas represent new centralized functionality for the state, highlighted in green. These are functions that are currently managed independently by individual agencies, often using Excel, Access database, or other tools. Examples include accounts receivable, which is currently tracked at an agency level, but will be consolidated for statewide reporting and standardized processes with the implementation of Bison. Project portfolio management, which includes project costing, contract billing, and grants management. These processes are currently decentralized and vary by agency. Within Bison, these modules will allow agencies to track, bill, and report on projects consistently across the state. While budgeting and annual financial reporting are not new functions for the state, the new Bison Chart of Accounts will enable a cloud-based budget system capable of reporting across standardized COA segments. This modernization will improve accuracy, reporting flexibility, and alignment with ERP transactions. With Bison's risk management modules, the state will gain enhanced controls, compliance assurance, and audit-ready monitoring of system access. The transition to Bison is not just a software upgrade, it is a statewide standardization of processes and data, reducing reliance on spreadsheets and local systems. Centralizing these functions will ultimately reduce duplication, improve transparency, and provide a single source of truth for financial procurement and project-related data. Bison represents a transformational effort for the state, focused on standardizing processes and adopting industry best practices. One of the most immediate benefits will be operational efficiency. By leveraging electronic workflows and digital authorizations, agencies can greatly reduce the reliance on paper-based processes. Streamlining approval workflows can also improve turnaround times and reduce errors and delays caused by manual processes. With the current fragmentation of our financial system environment, many agency-level systems exist due to certain financial functions not being available in our centralized environment. Having these functions available within Bison enables the elimination of certain agency shadow systems, which ultimately can decrease the need for dual entry or duplicative work. Many of these external systems are identified and planned for integration with go-live. We're also identifying potential integrations that will be brought into Bison post-go-live. A major benefit of implementing a cloud-based solution is the continuous improvement potential, not only from regularly scheduled ongoing upgrades and updates from Oracle, but also from continuing to identify agency systems or processes that can be integrated within Bison. The integration of our procurement processes will provide state vendors with modern features not currently available, including allowing vendors to upload and monitor invoices or RFX responses via a supplier portal. As noted previously, centralizing functionalities that are not currently available within a statewide system will enable the state to standardize business processes and align agencies with modern industry best practices. Another key improvement will include the ability to use real-time data for budget checking and reporting, as well as the many improvements to document retention and recall that come with a cloud-based system. We'll now get into discussing a bit of the project progress and major initiatives that are currently underway. This slide notes a few of our key project financial and procurement milestones. Design workshops were the first major milestone in Bison implementation. During this phase, we work closely with agencies to document current processes, identify gaps, and design future state processes. The goal was to define requirements and system configurations before configuring the system to ensure alignment with state policies and agency needs. These sessions also helped set expectations for change management and process standardization. Conference Room Pilot 1 was the first opportunity to test the system with actual workflows and sample data. The focus was to validate core processes and configuration decisions. Feedback from CRP1 was used to adjust configurations and clarify business requirements ahead of the next pilot. Conference Room Pilot 2 expanded testing to more complex scenarios and additional modules. CRP2 also began to refine module workflows. Feedback from CRP2 informed additional system adjustments in preparation for system integration testing. Pre-end-to-end module testing was designed to validate each module individually before executing full end-to-end business processes. This phase focused on ensuring that system components function correctly on their own and are ready for broader SIT and user acceptance testing. Each milestone has represented progressive validation, moving from design to configuration to single module testing, and finally towards integrated workflows. These milestones are critical to mitigating risk, ensuring that the system is thoroughly vetted before going live. Agency involvement at each stage has been essential to helping ensure that processes align with real-world operations. One of the keys to Bison's success is active engagement from agencies across the state. Across all milestones, we've had hundreds of staff from dozens of agencies contributing to workshops, pilots, and testing cycles. Agency participation is critical to the project, as agencies are the experts in their own operations. Their involvement ensures that the system is practical, accurate, and usable. Broad participation helps identify process gaps, data issues, and integration risks. Active engagement also supports change management, helping staff across the state understand, adopt, and succeed with the new system. The numbers on this slide show more than meetings and staff. They demonstrate a collaborative statewide effort, which is critical to the success of a system-wide transformation. This slide will get into EPM, or Enterprise Performance Management. In addition to the activities associated With the financial and procurement integration efforts, there has also been significant progress made regarding the implementation of EPM within Bison. EPM is a component of Oracle Fusion that enables the state to plan, budget, and report on financial performance in a centralized and standardized way. It connects agency-level budgeting and reporting to statewide priorities, ensuring alignment across all financial and operational activities. EPM allows agencies and statewide leadership to monitor financial and operational results as they happen, rather than waiting for monthly or quarterly reports. Timely visibility allows for proactive resolution of issues, minimizing the risk of larger disruptions. Standardized automated reporting improves accuracy, consistency, and timeliness. Reports generated through EPM are aligned with statewide financial definitions, the new chart of accounts, and regulatory requirements, supporting better oversight and transparency. With centralized EPM data, decision makers can evaluate options based on complete and accurate information, allowing agencies the ability to make informed choices about resource allocation, program investments, and operational adjustments. EPM provides tools to model what-if scenarios, testing potential budget or policy changes before committing resources. This capability improves strategic planning and risk management. By using a centralized system for budgeting, planning, and reporting, all agencies adopt consistent metrics, definitions, and reporting processes. EPM benefits in Bison include improved accuracy, transparency, and accountability, while providing tools for better planning, forecasting, and performance oversight statewide.
Representative Auk.
Thank you, Chairman Derby. I just have a question. You're getting into transparency and accountability. I think there are some concerns amongst the legislators, amongst LRC. Are they going to have the same access that we have had? Are we going to be able to see what we need to see in order to do a good job of making sure that taxpayers' dollars are being spent, responsibly? And I'm just curious. And another concern I have, may I, in reference to the auditor. Is the auditor going to be able to have the same authority? Are they going to be able to obtain information that they need in order to make those decisions? Just curious.
Sure. And Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I'll start with the auditor. We had that discussion a bit last week, referring to Senate Bill 73, which got into updating some statutes for financial process across the state. In short, the auditor will have all the access that they have today. They'll have access to all transactional records, and they'll have them in essentially real time as soon as those records are put into workflow, and they'll maintain the record-keeping authority over top those. So
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So they'll have the same, because right now everything's in a budget unit, and there is a digital recognition to every invoice, every record. They'll understand and know what those codes are. You'll share them with the auditor. They'll understand how your coding methods work. Everything will be transparent, and they'll have just as much, if not hopefully more, understanding of where the state dollars are being spent and how they're being spent, correct?
Mr. Chair, I would say correct. And I think one of the advantages that we'll see in the chart of accounts updates is the system will display results not just based on numerical values, that when we think of how charts of accounts are coded today, but descriptions. So I think it'll be much more clear, especially to folks who maybe don't live that on a daily basis, where that money is coming from and what's it intended to be spent on.
Follow up?
Yep. Mr. Chair, I think we had another question regarding legislative access. Again, the same. I think we'll see improved access to the data that will help make those decisions on a more regular basis. I don't know if you wanted to discuss as far as legislative access. Yeah. Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I'll bring up Colin Keeler, our project director. He's very involved in we talk about the access controls and rules going forward.
Mr. Chair, Colin Keeler with the Bureau of Finance and Management. As it pertains to legislative access, the system has the ability to have real-time dashboards, particularly for this committee when we're talking about things like budget versus actuals, being able to utilize the new chart of accounts in a way that really facilitates the work this committee does. If you look at House Bill 1137, is that the general bill this year, the governor's general bill? You'll see that there's a whole different format that we're working with your staff to make that bill more transparent, more obvious to the public and this committee what all those different changes are. As it pertains to the public, parts of Bison will be connected directly to OpenSD. So, for instance, today the auditor's office gets copies of only some contracts that statute requires to be filed with them, and then agencies have to manually post other contracts online to follow the statutes. Bison's going to automatically feed that into OpenSD, so when an agency has even a purchase order out there, it will just be online and searchable. So there's a lot of improvements like that.
Great question. Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was really my question as well, and just making sure that LRC has access to at least project level. You know, what exactly is going to be their access? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, yeah, appreciate that question too. LRC will, today, for instance, because the legislature's on a different network than the rest of state government, we have to package up every time we run a general ledger posting or every time we say, you know, the governor presents his budget and we need to get a copy of that to the LRC. We have to package all that data up. We back up a database, we transmit it to LRC, and they restore it in tools that they use for their information and the information that they share with you folks. Because this is in the cloud, Bison will be in the cloud, the LRC will have real-time, full access to everything in that system. That is a completed product, of course, not, you know, things in work. The same thing is true for the accounting information. So just like the state auditor's office or legislative audit, the LRC staff will have access to all of that information as well. And like Mr. Lutz said, instead of a lot of obscure numbers that only accountants really know what they mean, this system is designed more around a lot of meaningful words that you can search for and find that will make more sense to people who maybe don't live in that world on a daily basis.
Senator Vilhauer.
That was my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was my question as well, as far as LRC access to what they need.
Senator Otten.
As we look at it, there'll be also hyperlinks, correct, as we work our way through it, that you can hyperlink from link to link to link and dive into the system itself?
Mr. Chair, absolutely, Senator. In fact, that's one of the, I think, the biggest initial obvious changes that people see when they're playing in this in the new system. Today, you guys have seen pictures of some of our old mainframe green screens, and you know there is no images, there are no documents in the system. They're all paper that are in a file drawer somewhere or in a box that you have to go pull out by some obscure code. In this new system, for instance, a contract is established, the contract, image of the contract plus the data is in the system, a purchase order against that contract is established, they're tied and linked, an invoice against that purchase order is tied and linked, so you can see all the transactions in one place and you can just follow it right through. If somebody's looking at it, take the state auditor as an example, if they're looking at an invoice to approve it and pay it, they can just click and jump over to what that contract says. It's all tied together.
Follow up?
Not really a follow-up, but just to inform the committee, and since I see Mr. Keeler in here, the reason I asked that, I already knew what the answer was, because these concerns were brought forward well over a year ago, that we had to have this kind of access. And so we've had our input into this, and I think at the end of the day, we're really going to be pleased.
Representative Casson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I promise I'm not going to brief for my friends from USD, but I did want to make mention of when we talk about the LRC, that is the Legislative Research Council, and they actually work for the legislative body. And a fun fact is it was actually founded by Doc Farber, who has a statue on the University of South Dakota. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee for the discussion. So this slide just denotes major milestones that have been completed within our EPM implementation. Similar to finance and procurement timelines, staff are now focused on configuring the system in preparation for system integration testing. There are several major project initiatives currently underway, one of which is the interface development effort, a critical component for project success and production readiness. A total of 69 interfaces are required for go-live, each progressing through a defined 5-step life cycle: specifications, code development, technical testing, BIT and BFM development, and functional testing. The Bureau of Information and Technology has been a key partner in this effort. BIT has appointed a dedicated project manager to oversee BIT development activities and serve within the Bison Project Management Office. To support coordination and momentum, daily touchpoints are held between BIT, Bison project staff, and vendor staff to track progress, resolve issues, and manage dependencies. As the Oracle Cloud Fusion data structure is new for the state, this work has required additional time and effort to ensure interfaces are designed correctly. Fusion interfaces demand a high level of precision to maintain data integrity and preserve audit trails, making sequencing and quality control essential. The Bison team has completed approximately 80% of the interface development effort, while remaining activities are focused on final development, testing, and validation. Another ongoing initiative is the modernization of our chart of accounts. The chart of accounts is a foundation for how the state tracks, controls, and reports public funds. Every financial transaction ultimately relies on the COA, which is why getting it right is critical to both daily operations and statewide reporting. The COA ensures that appropriations, expenditures, and revenues are recorded in a way that accurately reflects how programs are designed and funded. It provides the structure needed to distinguish between funding sources, programs, grants, and spending categories. We've configured the system with input from the LRC fiscal staff that will improve the G-bill process. This alignment improves transparency, supports clear legislative oversight, and ensures financial reporting aligns with approved appropriations, audit requirements, and federal compliance obligations.
Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on the previous slide, it said go live. So when is your go live date?
Sure. Our go live date has been targeted for July 1st of 2026. We're currently in a pause for system integration testing while the project management office analyzes the schedule and timeline. As we're getting into here, there are some major initiatives that we need to make sure are completed and completed with integrity prior to getting into system integration testing. So that timeline will be dependent on the finality of these undergoing efforts.
Senator Carley.
Thank you, Chair. Can you put a best guess on that? That I didn't really hear a date there. I heard maybe sometime after July. Could you give us a range?
Mr. Chair, and Senator Carley, thank you for that question. In good faith, I couldn't give you a best guess right now or a more specific date until we have the results of what the ongoing review of that is, whether that be July 1 or August 1, October 1, out to next July. I think we'll have more information on that in the coming weeks to months, depending on the outcomes of these efforts. But the key being that we need to get this right, and that rushing into upcoming activities and ultimately rushing into go live can have a negative impact on the state and the project that would take even longer to recover from.
Okay, continue.
So updating the COA is not isolated to finance. It directly affects budgets, payroll, procurement, grants management, and financial reporting across all agencies. Because these functions are tightly integrated within Bison, changes to the COA cascade across multiple modules and processes. That enterprise-wide reach makes COA updates especially complex and require close coordination between agencies and the implementation team. Every state agency has been and will continue being involved in this effort. While updating the COA is a demanding effort, it is essential to supporting a modern, standardized Oracle Fusion environment. Once implemented, the updated COA will provide a stronger foundation for accurate reporting, improved oversight, and long-term financial transparency across the state.
Senator Vilhauer.
Hey, Mr. Chair. Last week, we heard a presentation from the Department of Legislative Audit. I assume they have been fully involved in this all the way through the process?
Yep. Mr. Chair, they have, and thank you for that, Senator Vilhauer. The Department of Legislative Audit has been a valued partner since the planning stages of this project. As we move toward a single standardized project and grants management system within Bison, Project Portfolio Management, or PPM, represents one of the more substantial lifts for agencies. This isn't just a technical integration, it's a combined process, data, and change management effort. Agencies are adopting new processes along with new terminology and roles that may not map one-to-one with how work is currently done. Today, many agencies rely on highly tailored Excel spreadsheets or access databases that have evolved over time to meet agency needs. Oracle Fusion PPM requires standardized definitions for projects, awards, tasks, and financial attributes. Aligning on those definitions across agencies is essential for consistency, reporting, and oversight, but it does require careful coordination and change. Existing project and financial data must be reviewed, cleaned, mapped, and converted into a format that Bison can use. This is not a simple lift and shift. It involves validating historical data and resolving any inconsistencies. As a result, data conversion is a time-intensive effort for both agency staff and the Project Bison team. While Oracle Fusion is a standardized ERP solution, configuration is still required to support state-specific policies, reporting needs, and control requirements. That configuration must balance flexibility for agencies with consistency across the state. Getting this right up front is critical to long-term success and helps avoid workarounds after go-live. The upfront investment in PPM is significant, but the payoff is reduced manual work, stronger controls, and much better visibility over time. As we continue in the presentation today, we'll touch on some upcoming milestones that we have in the project. The next key milestone is system integration testing, followed by user acceptance testing and end-user training. Completing these milestones thoroughly is critical to ensuring that the system operates reliably, meets agency needs, and is ready for statewide use. Each milestone builds on the previous one. SIT validates the system technically, UAT confirms it works operationally, and EUT prepares staff to use it effectively. Rushing these activities could result in system issues, data errors, or user adoption challenges. Comprehensive execution provides agencies with a dependable system from day one, reinforcing confidence in its functionality and controls. Over the next few slides, we'll briefly review these three activities. System integration testing, or SIT, is a formal testing phase where selected agency testers and project team members execute predefined test scripts using specific test data. The goal is to validate the system works as intended after configuration changes, additions, or removals made since the previous testing cycle of CRP2. SIT ensures that all Bison functionality performs correctly before moving into the next stages of testing. It confirms that all individual modules, finance, procurement, PPM, etc., integrate properly and communicate with each other without errors or data gaps. Essentially, SIT checks that the system operates as a complete end-to-end solution rather than just testing isolated modules. SIT testers will execute group scripts to simulate end-to-end business processes such as requisition to payment or project costing to billing scenarios. This approach ensures that not only do individual processes work correctly, but the flow of data across modules is accurate and seamless. Additionally, the identification and resolution of any data consistencies or functionality gaps are necessary before the project enters the testing cycle. Real importantly, one very critical component to SIT is verifying that the incoming interfaces and integrations to Bison will function correctly. By completing SIT successfully, we gain confidence that Bison is functioning as a fully integrated system, ready to support agency operations. SIT is also a critical milestone for risk mitigation, ensuring that any issues are caught and addressed, reducing the chance of disruption once the system goes live. Success in SIT lays the foundation for user acceptance testing, providing agencies with confidence that the system will work as expected in their day-to-day operations. User acceptance testing is a critical phase in the Bison implementation where agency end users test the system in scenarios that reflect their daily operations. During UAT, actual users from agencies step through processes they perform every day. Their feedback ensures that the system supports operational needs and established workflows. UAT goes beyond individual modules. It tests end-to-end workflows, including cross-agency transactions, approvals, and reporting. This ensures that data flows correctly across modules and that processes work seamlessly from start to finish. UAT provides users with hands-on experience in the system, helping them build confidence and familiarity before go-live. It also reinforces training efforts as users practice real workflows in a controlled testing environment. UAT isn't just testing, it's a validation and readiness checkpoint for the state. Success in UAT reduces risk at go-live and confirms the system is truly ready for everyday use by agencies. Finally, end-user training is a critical step that prepares agency staff to perform their daily tasks effectively in the new system. The training also ensures staff understand and adopt standardized processes that align with statewide policies and procedures. Training provides staff with practical hands-on experience in the system. By working in a controlled environment, users can become comfortable with the system navigation, screens, and functionality before go-live. Training will emphasize consistent processes across agencies. Standardization ensures that all agencies are aligned in procedures, terminology, and reporting, which reduces errors and improves efficiency. By the end of training, staff should feel confident and capable performing their daily duties in Bison. Increased proficiency reduces errors, improves data quality, and ensures a smoother transition at go-live. We'll now move to the project-to-date expenses. This slide presents an overview of the project's appropriation, budget allocations, and project-to-date expenditures. The budgeted amounts shown reflect allocations of the approved appropriation following the system selection and contracting process. The system integrator represents the vendor contracted to implement Bison. Interfaces encompass the work required to connect and integrate with other state systems within Bison. State resources include staff time, facilities, capital outlay for the project team, and contractual services provided through BIT. The SaaS, or Software as a Service category, covers Oracle Fusion Cloud hosting services, along with select software and training-related tools. The project management category includes contracted project management services, ERP advisory support, and technical and functional expertise provided to supplement state resources. IV&V refers to independent verification and validation services provided by a separate, independently contracted entity providing review of project progress, risks, and overall readiness. The table on the right displays the project-to-date expenditures separated by expenditure object.
Question, so if I read this correctly, between now and approximately July 1st or the go-live date, you'll be expending 50 million between now and then?
Mr. Chair will bring Project Director Colin Keeler back up.
Mr. Chair, Colin Keeler again with Bureau of Finance and Management. Mr. Chairman, no. Some of that goes into, we have a milestone-based contract with our vendors, so there are different achievements that they need to meet before we issue payments. There are some of those that are backloaded towards the end of the contract, but also keep in mind that there's post-go-live support built into this. We're going to have vendors assisting us. They're not going to turn the car on, give us the keys, and then go away. We're going to need them to hold our hands for a little bit, so this will carry out at probably more than 6 months after we go live. And additionally, some of that funding will continue to be used for interface refinement with BIT. We'll probably come up with new interfaces that we're going to need to build into Bison. In fact, I believe we already have a list of things that agencies have wanted to tie into Bison, and we've had to tell them we can't take that on right now. So there's kind of a waiting list that some of this will be used to address as well. It's a major change, and it touches, Jason talked about 69 interfaces you had on your list. There's going to be far, far more as we continue on. Plus, the cloud hosting services are, go into the future as well.
I've got a follow-up. So, are you confident you're going to stay within your $70 million budget at this point?
We are, sir. I think you heard the commissioner address that a little bit last week on Senate Bill 72, and actually Senator Carley asked about if we have a delay and we extend it, whatever that ends up being, after we figure out what the schedule looks like to get us to system integration testing with integrity. We'll work with our vendors with those milestones, but I think we are very confident that we have enough funding. We may not have enough time between now and July 1, but we still believe we have enough funding. We're not going to need to come back and ask for additional funding to complete the project.
Okay. Senator Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mr. Just a reminder, the Senate appropriators approved Senate Bill 72 just last week, and yesterday the full body was on the consent agenda, and that allows for a 3-year carryover to June of 2029 for expenditure of the funds.
Good to know. Who's next? Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious what the ongoing funds are going to be with the cloud service. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, really good question. Today, we spend, and this is not including staff time, just the state employee time that will be involved. You've heard us talk about the 16 FTE. I think in this committee we've talked about it for several years. We've had to ramp up from 8 to our feasibility study says 16 is the number that we should have for an organization our size. We're at 13 right now. So we'll have those kind of costs. I don't have a number for you what that will cost, but the hosting itself is a little over $1 million a year. By way of comparison, today for a 1988 era mainframe system, we spend over $600,000 a year just on software maintenance alone. And that does a fraction of what the new software does. And it's never updated, whereas this new software, we negotiated a really good deal, and everybody has told us that when we locked that price in for over a decade for the state.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wondering, I think I've asked this before. It is all, the cloud base is all U.S.-based? Is it offshore for security purposes?
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is all onshore. We are, I believe, part of it is in Phoenix. Is it all? We're in a Phoenix data center in the cloud, and then some of the EPM budgeting is in Chicago.
Senator Carley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to follow up on that, the cloud computing, is it using the Azure or AWS or a third-party proprietary?
Mr. Chair, that's a really good question too. So Azure is a Microsoft platform. AWS is their own proprietary. They're all proprietary, if you will. Proprietary to Microsoft, proprietary to AWS. In this case, Oracle is kind of the third big gorilla in that world. So Oracle does not use Microsoft platform. They don't use AWS. They use Oracle platform. So it's in Oracle's cloud.
And follow up, is there any caching or anything that's in place so that if you lose internet connection, if the data center loses internet connection, is the staff here, are they offline until internet resurfaces or even the data center resurfaces, or is there any backup or local caching or data here that they can do some functions offline, or is it all dependent on that connection?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if I have a real good answer for that, but pretty much it's going to be dependent on your internet connectivity, just like even if your home is cut off from the internet, you're not going to be able to go shopping on Amazon, right? If somebody were to cut the fiber to this campus, well, this campus won't be able to be online, but I could literally go to my house and still get to the system because it's in the cloud. I'm not aware of any outages that Oracle has had. I'm not aware of any that AWS has had. I think we've all heard in the news recently Microsoft had a couple of outages. I guess it can always happen, but part of their service is to provide redundancy and backups. All of that is reviewed and literally audited by your Department of Legislative Audit. You know, we're trying to be we're far more secure and available in the cloud than we would be in today's world.
Yeah, I use the Oracle cloud and Oracle software, and it goes offline once in a while. So I just, it's worth thinking through that because, you know, accounting people can't use the software at that moment. Usually they're pretty quick about restoring, but, you know, just something to maybe think through, you know, what's the, what do we do when it's down? Do we just stand by? Do we wait? Do we work on other things? So just something to, you know, keep in mind for the future, because nothing's 100% always up.
Senator Voida.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my first comment is, so this go live should go much smoother than 605 Drive.
Mr. Chair, I have no knowledge of that. I'm sorry, Senator.
That was a comment?
Yeah, I do have a question though. Okay, so this chart of accounts slide that you went through, I'm not sure if I 100% understand this correctly, but here's my question. So if, say we pass a law that changes statute on where a revenue stream goes, like it changes the account or who manages that, is your chart of accounts kind of like the pathway where all of that goes?
Mr. Chair? Yeah, I would, if you really wanted to learn about some of this, we'd be tickled to sit down and show you this. But today, our chart of, I think that I'm not an accountant, first off, Senator, but I've certainly worked with some of the best accountants in state government and have for a very long time. And I've lived in the budget world for a very long time as well. So I think of these things as the buckets in which we count the money, right? Whether it's the budget or the expense or an encumbrance or whatever it is. And today we track in 3 different buckets, and some agencies carry paint in their bucket, and some agencies carry water in their bucket, and some agencies carry gravel in that same bucket. Our new chart of accounts has 8 segments, and these segments are going to be used much more consistently by the agencies. So everybody's going to be carrying the same type of item in the same bucket. So when your staff tries to answer a question, just as an example, and you say, how much did the state spend on red pens versus blue pens, or something more meaningful, they will know where to go to find that answer, because it's going to be the same across every state agency. Today, they have the ability to track some things the way they want to within the departments, and we're going to be standardizing that. I hope that helps a little bit.
Okay, so it's not exactly like where the statutes say that's not really necessarily.
Mr. Chair, typically the kind of things that we see every year, and I mean, there's a bunch of them out there this year, is that there will be there's hereby created the fund XYZ in the state treasury to be used for this, that, and the other thing. We create a segment value that will represent that fund, and then set that up so that it is reported where it needs to be reported for budget purposes, for financial reporting, which is governed, of course, by like accounting rules, for agency management information reporting. That's more of the values when you create a fund, or if you were to, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
One more. So how is it going to be an issue, or is it going to be easier, say if we create a fund or change a revenue flow with the new system?
Mr. Chair, I would say it's going to be easier and more transparent, and easier for people to follow and understand and get that information back out.
Representative Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My understanding under the current system, answering the question is how much do we spend on Medicaid is a challenge because it's in so many different departments. And I also understand that it has to be categorized 2 different ways. One is which department it is, and is it Medicaid or not. So I guess the question is, does the new system solve that quandary?
Mr. Chairman, I think the short answer, Senator, is yes. We are in the middle of this chart of accounts work, as Mr. Letts talked about, and a vast, I'll say majority of that effort is in how federal funds are tracked and reported, and how much state funding, how state funding matches those federal funds. It will be standardized and much more transparent and easy to get those kind of answers.
Thank you.
Okay, continue. Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Concludes our prepared presentation. Again, we really appreciate the opportunity to come up and visit with you, and look forward to continued updates as the project progresses.
Any further questions? Mr. Keeler, do you want to close us out?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I want to reiterate what the commissioner said. Excuse me. We really appreciate all the support from this committee. I've enjoyed letting some of you kind of ride along with this for the last few years and watch the progress as we've gone. I know we have some members who are no longer here who are very interested in it. I like seeing new members here who are very interested in this. This is a major thing for state government. This is a huge game-changing thing for the legislature, for the executive branch, and thank you for your support.
Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to say my husband is a systems engineer, and so he did this kind of work for years. So I understand the frustrations sometimes with it and how complicated it can be. But he used to say it was like trying to change out an engine on an airplane while it's flying. So I know that, you know, you have a tough job, and I'm very excited to see this whole project. Of course, we want to make sure that it goes online and it goes online seamlessly. I understand that as well. I do have one little question, because this came up a lot when he was doing this kind of work. It had to do with the time change. When you went from daylight savings, or you would have a time change, and it seemed to always cause a glitch in the system. Is that something you've looked at? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, not specifically, but just like any other computer, they all operate on Zulu time, or, you know, the Greenwich Mean Time, and then make adjustments for whatever your time zone is set to. We operate mostly in Central Time, I think, on our systems. And we've certainly gone through time changes with our system, with the new system now, so we don't foresee any issues.
Senator Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You said something just a couple minutes ago that sparked a question in my mind. You talked about legislators that have followed this that are no longer part of the body anymore. How deep is our bench? I mean, if you know, a couple of you gentlemen or folks that are working this, because this is a huge project, all of a sudden are no longer with this. Is our bench deep enough that we can carry through with it?
Mr. Chairman, that's a good question. I think, you know, we always have those kind of challenges in state government, right? Jason mentioned earlier on, one of the, I think it was in response to your question, what initiated this at the very beginning. We are running short of experienced staff to support our current system. You know, that will always be an issue. We've designed this project around many of my longtime staff, and I feel like we only have a couple of people keeping the current trains running because we have so many people focused on building these new tracks right now. We brought on 8 or 9 new people just for this project, just within BFM. One of our main strategies is to have subject matter experts across state government, not just in BFM. So we have functional leads for different modules, for instance, accounts payable or procurement or accounts receivable is a one that jumps to mind right away, where BFM doesn't really have expertise in specifically, in my example, the accounts receivable world. We don't do accounts receivable, but there are agencies that do. So we want to build and share that expertise so that the bench is not just deep but wide. And in my hope, I think it was actually Senator Howard who asked a question the other day when we were on Senate Bill probably 72. And I talked about where will some of these people go. Some of the people who are gaining this experience on this project, it's my hope that many of them end up out in agencies as that agency's expert, and they bring that knowledge. One last comment in that area is that today, with the obscure systems that we have, agencies, when they hire a new accountant, they get taught by the old accountant who got taught by the predecessor, who got taught by the predecessor, and you lose things. There is functionality even in today's system that people don't realize it can do because they've lost it over time. With a cloud-based system like this that's updated every quarter with built-in training into the system, with that kind of knowledge transfer from the system itself, we're going to be able to do a much, much better job of training our new employees and keeping our old ones up to date on functionality.
Thank you, good to know.
Senator Carley.
Thank you, Chair. Question, I love the marketing name. We have the most bison of any state in any state of the country, so it's a great name for marketing. Just curious, what's the underlying software name that we're using for this guy? I'm sure it's not named Bison. What, is it Oracle, NetSuite, or what is it?
It's called Oracle Fusion. So as you mentioned, Oracle has a number of products in the ERP world. They acquired, well, actually, PeopleSoft acquired a product called, do you remember what that one was called? PeopleSoft ate a smaller company, then Oracle ate PeopleSoft, but to try and absorb it into NetSuite or their previous business ERP. PeopleSoft still exists and is run by probably 20 states today. Hopefully most of those states migrate to what we run. Directly to your question, sir, is called Oracle Fusion. It is their newest, most modern cloud-based office suite. NetSuite is probably more for smaller enterprises than Fusion. Fusion is the only Oracle product that is marketed today to something as large as a state government.
And the follow-up to that, I know we've talked about it before, but BISON is an acronym. I think I've asked this before. And what is the acronym for BISON?
Mr. Chair, BISON stands for Business Information System for Operational Needs. Of course, we just called it ERP way back at the beginning, and I think it was maybe the chair who even said we need to come up with a better name.
I liked ERP.
So we went through it was a really good organizational change management and awareness process too. We went through a pretty collaborative effort to solicit names from all over state government, logos, we had voting, and then I think the top several went to like the governor's executive team to make the final decision.
Very good. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to, before we take a little break and come back at 9:45, I noticed, Representative Cass, I noticed some more red out there. Are you involved with USD back there? Could you come up and introduce yourself and tell us what you're up to? Don't be shy. Okay, sit down and turn the microphone on. And
Hi, I'm Kylie Dong. I am a social work major, originally from Northwest Iowa.
Great.
I'm Annika Halverson. I'm also a social work major, and I'm from near Minneapolis in Minnesota.
Very good. Thanks for being here.
There we go. That's better. I'm Julia Kleinschmidt. I'm a career coach with the Center for Career Design at the University of South Dakota.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to recess till 9:45.
SDPB brings you closer to your government. With gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in-depth reporting from Pierre. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. When South Dakotans need reliable information, SDPB is there providing updates and coverage that keep our communities safe and connected. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB celebrates South Dakota's student athletes with live coverage of SDHSAA state championships, sharing the excitement of hometown heroes. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. From choir to debate to theater, SDPB shines a spotlight on South Dakota's talented students through SDHSAA All-State Fine Arts Programming. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB.
Welcome. We're going to come out of recess for the Joint Committee on Appropriations. And our next budget hearing is, and we've already had one budget hearing in regards to the Department of Social Service. And we've asked them to come back to answer a few questions and catch up on anything we didn't cover last time. And welcome, Mr. Secretary. Please introduce yourself and your team.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Matt Althoff, Cabinet Secretary of the Department of Social Services. With me today, our Medicaid Director, Heather Peterman. She's sitting with me here at the microphone. We also have our Deputy Secretary, Brenda Tidball-Zaltinger, our Chief of Behavioral Health, Brenna Kudum, is here for some questions if there's some particulars you want to get into, and also our Chief of Child and Family Services, Tiffany Wolfgang. Grateful to have our Communications Director as well. All of those are here today in the event that some of the questions go that direction. If I may, I'm going to start where you and I left off last night for a text exchange. I have a couple questions, and I thought I'd just start there, Mr. Chair.
That'd be great. Thank you.
And that came after 6, so just in fairness, we're going to give you some of these written form, I promise, but I'll give you some oral form here, just given the limited time we've had to deal with assembling the numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So first question was how much and what percentage of the Medicaid budget has been used so far this fiscal year? There's a lot of moving parts to Medicaid, so I would emphasize that we are still intensely finalizing our January numbers, so we don't have those ready. We typically ferry those over to Mr. Douglas on about the 16th of the month. That's when we finalize them, so they will be heading his way. But through December, I would just offer that both in the Medicaid, traditional Medicaid space, as well as the Medicaid expansion, we were clipping along through December at about 46%. 46% of the overall budget had been consumed through expenditures, illicit expenditures in Medicaid. My caution in all that, I remember vividly looking at our projection sheets in April of last year, and we were deep into our carryover to balance the thing. We had just had a run of 5 payrolls in 1 month that led to some, faster expenditures. And there's a reality that individuals on health insurance seek medical care when we don't expect it, or, otherwise we don't have any control over it. So there is that reality. I would urge the committee to bear in mind that at 46% wouldn't be a good idea to just extrapolate that. It would be my humble suggestion to the group. There are one-time expenditures that happen at the end of the year. You might recall last year we talked about the graduate medical education as one of the programs that the department has had through Medicaid. There's one example. And I would also be mindful that you know, is this department was in front of you last May because of a one-time transfer to help another department, you know, you can cut a budget too close if you don't have those controls. So those are just things that I would keep in mind when you hear that number of 46% through December, with January numbers to be finalized early next week. Is that fair, Mr. Chair? Can I extrapolate any deeper than that?
I think that answers that question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Second question was, I'm going to skip to the third if I could, and then I'll come back to the second. How much of the Medicaid is in our behavioral health budget? And if you go to your budget sheet, sorry, I should have jumped here first place. You'll see on our overall community behavioral health space, we are dealing with, that's the transfers, so that's probably not the best depiction of that, but we're roughly 126 million total. And of that, in the traditional Medicaid space, there's about 45 million. And again, I'm going to put this to you in writing, our team will, to your LRC staff, Mr. Chair, but roughly 45.8 million in the traditional Medicaid space are supporting our SUD and mental health services. And in the expansion space, that becomes an 18.8. Is where our budget is at right now, 18.8 million. So that's roughly $60 million towards 126. So just shy of 50% of our community behavioral health and SUD treatment is now Medicaid and Medicaid expansion. Again, I'll put that into numbers for you in an email correspondence to confirm that. But that's my suspicion. I don't want to know the origins of that question, but those of us that had the privilege of working in the work group, this is a point emphasized by some of the providers, as there has been this effort on their part to convert. There's a favorable federal match. Obviously, you all understand that with the expansion population being the new advent. So that's where that number stands. So roughly, you know, right at currently about 50%. Last question was, unless there's anything else from that, Mr. Chair.
No, thank you.
Last question related to specific programs not being utilized or not as much. And, you know, this is one of the challenges of coming here mid-year. It'd be a lot easier to sort of look back on the last year and tell you what we see, because there are a lot of seasonal things that happen. There are episodes, if you will, where we'll find a lot of children in a child welfare space that, you know, require services, and then you have a greater utilization of the budget there. So at this point in time, I would say it'd be premature to say, are there any programs that we're seeing underutilization that are meaningful or, you know, significant? And we're not seeing that right now. I assure you that is a huge part of our efforts when we go to the governor and developing the governor's recommended. So we look at it post facto and we say, in fiscal 26, are there changes going on within the marketplace that we would suggest we'd recommend moving monies? And that's where we very aggressively do that. I just want to assure the committee of that. But right now, here mid-year, we're not seeing anything that would sort of give rise in our minds to say, hey, here's an opportunity to maybe make an adjustment mid-year.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you.
I did want to follow along, too, if I could. This wasn't on your questions, Mr. Chair, but there was an exchange with LRC staff. I think it was in the context of the work groups, but the overall ongoing Medicaid budget. And regrettably, I don't know that I did the best of job last time I was here talking about utilization. So I just wanted to draw the committee's attention to that as you saw, when you think about physician services, inpatient hospital, outpatient hospital, prescription drugs, there was a lot of line items, and we tried to show our math. And so what we showed in that was, well, not all of our enrollees use prescription drugs, for example. I'm just picking some of these line items off. So in our Medicaid space, we you know, our number is about 22.9. So 22.9% of the Medicaid recipients are receiving a prescription drug. What are our overall costs? That's what goes into our formula. how many times are they receiving prescriptions? Those are the types of math that we tried to show in a relatively simple form in that exchange that we sent over to, I think it was to Mr. Melhoff. I'm looking at Mr. Douglas, but it was one of the two that were part of that discussion. And my wonderment, Mr. Chair, is I think that might help to, more artfully than what my efforts were last time I was in front of this committee, to sort of describe how we look at utilization in the Medicaid ongoing budget. This is the Medicaid space. We're still learning with a relatively young program with Medicaid expansion, and those utilization numbers are very different. We can all appreciate that. Children don't have prescriptions like adults do. And so, you know, we're building the exact same thing in expansion, but Medicaid has a 60-year history. Medicaid expansion has a 2.5-year history. And so that's where you continue to see. We are refining our ongoing expansion budget and understanding more and more what are the services that are being utilized by the Medicaid expansion recipients, what is the cost that we're seeing as they consume those services by the line items here in the group. So again, that was provided in written form, but I think that might give some context to some of the utilization questions that you were asking of me last time, Mr. Chair. How am I doing? Am I provoking any additional questions or?
So far, so good.
All right. So just to get back into our ongoing budget, and then we'll probably pivot, because quite candidly, I don't think there's much else for us to cover. We feel like we got the bulk of this, and I know there's a want to have providers to speak up as well. Perhaps that's in your desires here this morning in our time allotted. Just to level set again for the benefit of the committee, you know, just one, this is meant to be a reflection of your budget sheets. So the SNAP administration, that is an HR 1 phenomenon, states moving from 50 to up to 75% of the share of the administration, where there's a defunding that's happened at the federal level of the SNAP Ed program. So that's just where that number's backing out on the spending authority. The $2,500, that was a benefit that we accrued by getting a certified system from CMS. So that's a FMAP going in our favor. The food adjustment that relates to HSC, the utility costs, that's an HSC phenomenon. Things are just kind of fixed with our ongoing operation of a hospital. Mandatory inflation, again, these are some of these spaces where large number of those are the dual enrolled, Medicaid and Medicare, so we're paying the supplemental premiums. That's long-standing practice, CMS and state practice there, and some of those mandatory inflation spaces. A harder one, the FMAP, that obviously is relating to, that's a formula-driven economics driving all that. And then you have a lot of internal transfers that we talked about, and we kind of showed those base transfers coming out of behavioral health space and going into both personnel and a couple of ongoing programming monies that are going into a couple of the divisions, as you might recall, as I went through those division sheets. So that's essentially what, you know, in a nutshell, we would contend this is the call letter, is what's going on with our ins and outs for our budget, and the governor's recommended.
Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Making sure I understand, obviously, on this call letter, in this case, we have zero changes, or budget held harmless, so to speak, for the kinship licensure and one-stop authority. Just a couple of questions related to that popped up this week. So on the kinship side, do we have any numbers? I know there was a conversation over the summer involving the transfer to kinship. Do we have any hard numbers at this point of how many folks have been transferred over to that program at this point?
Mr. Chair, at this moment in time, I don't have it at my person. I can follow up with the committee. The uptake on that, again, going back to June when the the licensure rule took effect, and then our work to get a contracted provider to help do that training. It's a minimal training for kinship. I will come back with an exact numbers where we are through, we might have January numbers by right now. But again, the funding, we found the funding within our behavioral health budget, and we're asking for a base transfer to pay. I'm sorry, that was not from that was from the CPS utilization. So,
and a follow-up, if I may, unrelated, but maybe you can address this as well. So we're talking about the one-stop authority. I know in the Medicaid work group there were some concerns about are we utilizing funding for one stop that could be utilized for providers, particularly for behavioral health. Can you speak to that?
I'm going to emphasize what I thought I tried here before, so it's a little repetitive. You know, the directive that I feel we heard an executive branch with the one-stop request last year was find the money within your ongoing, and that's exactly what the department has done. Is we looked at where our providers. I mean, let's just sort of level set that in our behavioral health, mental substance use space, we allocate all those funds through contracts, right? We can say that on a, you know, we'd have a liability on our balance sheet saying, hey, we're obligated to pay these if in fact they're able to draw down. They're not able to draw down, right? And they'll cite staffing and being the biggest thing. They can't find the staff, and so they do have, you know, we monitor our wait lists, but at the end of the day, we think that number is pretty darn close, but we've had, in terms of aligning the demand to the resource that's needed. The inability to fully capacitate in the provider space has led to this phenomenon of having some carryover funds, and that's been a tradition we've had. And so that's the first place we went, is where we had carryover funds, and it was a collective decision working with the Bureau and the Gov's office to say, well, then let's move those monies into other divisions to make these base transfers and to cover our proportional amount of the rents in Sioux Falls and proportional to the foot space that each of those divisions occupy in the building.
Follow up. Senator Foster.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a follow-up regarding that question. So as I remember on the scale, it shows that there will be a continual increase in rent over the time of the lease. And considering federal defunding of programs, and so cutting back, so the short-term plan is to look at those carryover funds that are unutilized and redistribute them to pay for the rents. What is your long-term plan to be able to do that? Because eventually, once services are provided at the true need, there won't be as many carryover funds. So what is your long-term plan to be able to pay the increasing rent as well as not, you know, like provide services and not have that affect services that are provided?
Mr. Chair, the lease has an increase in rent every 5 years, so that's a little bit out. So there's why I would say we're going to use this time to figure out that long-term strategy. I would say right now I'm not able to articulate exactly what's going to happen in that space. So this is a short-term fix, and we'll continue to work at it. But we know that doesn't come along until I might be off my numbers, but I think we're still 3 years out on the lease agreement before that escalator clause happens in the rent.
Additional questions? Yes, Representative Sharda.
Thank you. Is there a way to make utilization more efficient? Like I know some Medicaid people, they have the foot hurts to go to the emergency room, or their baby has a fever, they go to the emergency room. Is there a way to teach them or train them a better way to use services?
Mr. Chair, thank you very much for the question, Representative Charda. Yes, and that's exactly how we feel the PACT program in the rural health transformation is aiming. That is its bullseye, is to help with that. I'm going to ask our Medicaid director, since she's sitting next to me, and my voice can be very tiresome. I think Heather can unpack that a little bit more about what's our vision for the PACT program inside rural health transformation and how we think we can achieve that. It's a lofty goal, no denying that, and there's certainly some headwinds ahead of us with many years of a payment system that's been incentivized to care for sick. We're obviously trying to get it so that we can care for the healthy and such. Would you feather in on that, Heather?
Mr. Chair. Heather Peterman, Medicaid Director. Representative Sharda, thank you for that question. There currently are some care management programs within our Medicaid program that the primary care accountable transformation effort through our rural health transformation application really build on and expand, which focus on that kind of care coordination and support that need to go to the members who may not be aware of the most efficient way to use their healthcare resources, to provide some of that support in focusing on prevention of either disease before it gets worse, or even of better managing their current chronic conditions. And one of the ways that we're able to do that through models like the PACT model that we'll work with providers to refine, is to ensure that there's enough flexibility in the primary care payment that goes to that clinic to wrap around, so the care team members can be available to do that kind of outreach and education, and better use the clinician's time within that care team. So it's really a model where we can match and better align the way that the payment goes to the clinic with how they could deliver more efficient services and coordination supports to our members.
And if I could just feather in one other thing, we have a GOAC indicator that is cost avoidance, as Heather pointed out. You know, the cost avoidance is that nursing home or emergency visit that was unnecessary. So grateful. We have a lot of primary care physicians that help us in those home programs that we call. So already tracking that, and that's what sort of gives us a confidence that we can build out from that, this more robust primary care initiative through rural health transformation dollars. So.
Okay. I have a comment, but anything else in closing, I guess?
I'll probably defer if there's any other questions that come up,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, I appreciate it. My one comment is that I failed to introduce somebody that's a big faux pas on my part, so if I could beg the indulgence. Steve Rasmussen is our Chief Financial Officer, and I failed to list him. He's back there, too, so we're thrilled to have him on the job for months, so he's an expert. So I mean that tongue-in-cheek, but he's been a fast learner and a great contribution to our team. So I'm so blessed to work with these leaders in the department.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to make a comment, and I may Representative Mucky can follow up, and then we'll have time for testifiers. But I just wanted to thank you for your participation in the Medicaid Healthcare Provider Work Group. It was 5 robust meetings, and I know I learned a lot, and appreciate all the people that participated. What would you consider your biggest takeaways from that work group?
Thank you for that. Number one, I really consider it a profound privilege to be able to interact with our 18,000 Medicaid enrolled providers. And so my heart typically thinks of all of them when we're dealing with Medicaid. And all of them have very different levels of dependencies on Medicaid funding to keep their operations going. But it's increasingly clear that margins do appear to be shrinking in healthcare space, and so Medicaid revenues, if you will, to them is an increasingly important thing. So, to me, it was just a privilege for us to sort of talk about that a lot of providers were able to sort of make their piece or make their case, probably a better way of saying it, to the group. And I'm grateful to hear, that the work group seemed to have walked away with a deepened appreciation for how complex and how complicated. The second thing, it's just an honor to be able to talk about some of the ongoing things that we do to monitor costs and more importantly, ward out fraud. We didn't go deep into some of these things, but there's a lot of inner workings in our Medicaid space team, whether it's our finance team or med services team, that are built to make certain that all precious Medicaid dollars being invested on behalf of a Medicaid enrollee are going for their intended purpose, and that it's a reasonably just sort of fee that we're paying for those services. And that's a hard thing to do, as you have a lot of providers that are struggling, and you heard that, and I appreciate the openness to it. We hear them, and you have a very difficult job, appropriators. I know what it's like to deal with it just in the department and limited scale that we have, but when for all of great state government, you have a very unenviable job, to all of you, and I just really appreciate that you choose to sit on this committee and understand so many complexities. Medicaid, sure, it's a big program, but there's all kinds of things going on in state government that are, sort of a pull on the general fund. So I appreciate all the work that this group does as a second takeaway for me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and your team for your help. I know it's good to be able to work with you to say how do we actually proceed and try to find, as we navigate a, as you said, very complex topic, how do we get to the numbers and figure out how do we act as a partner in that. And so Just walking through again, I know we talked about this a little bit at the end of our work group. You know, the main things I presented to our committee is some recommended actions. Continuing to have conversations about House Bill 1250, the 5-year reimbursement rate methodology, and figuring out how do we make sure that we're including federally qualified health centers and critical access hospitals in that process. And I know there's going to be a push from this committee to focus on federal qualified health centers and figure out how do we bring them to at least as close as we can tell the number that I think you have agreements with them on in terms of general funds. And I think going forward, you know, the general theme, and I think for the benefit of the committee and those who are here today, going forward, trying to figure out how do we stabilize our budget in the sense of how do we, you know, using the words cost containment, how do we make sure that we have the appropriate inflationary rates for each provider group so that we can have transparency in the process for all parties involved, basically, and make sure that we're addressing that going forward. So outside of that, you know, if you can, I know there was conversation as well. You're in the process right now of negotiating or discussing, I guess, for lack of a better way, what is the plan going forward for hospitals? If you could kind of share for the committee what plans there might be at this point.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. You know, if I'm learning anything in this role, it's that be careful to set your own timelines. Because if you're going to want to make common sense common, you're going to need to allow people to sort of chew on the issue and resonate with them and make sure they feel they've had an opportunity to represent the facts. And I feel a great urgency to deal with what I see as there's some inequities in our inherited hospital methodology space. So there's a desire on my part to keep pushing on this. But it's very clear to me to impose a recommendation from a third party that I think is very well formed is creating a lot of concern, deep-seated concern amongst our 39 critical access hospitals. So I do not have a timeline in mind. I have, and we're working even today with systems, having ongoing discussions about that. How do we, though, keep ourselves at the table, lean into one another's perspectives, insights, make common sense common, right? What's going on, and to collectively figure out a strategy to go forward. You know, there's some inherited controls. We've been doing this with insider appropriation, and I'm not in a position where I can deviate from that. You know, there's some other things that may come as a result of that, but that's not something that I can actually do. So I'm living within certain controls or constraints as we go through this process. But I assure you, what is still very much a possibility for the department's mind, critical access, the change in methodology by July 1st is not going to happen. You know, given the rulemaking process, that's one of the things that's have to go for. And so when you work backwards, that's not going to happen. But what I still hold out hope for is, of course, there are multiple hospitals, whether they're out-of-state hospitals where we see quite a few patients receiving care, or our major acute hospitals who are also dealing with an antiquated or insufficient metric on their methodology. They're using only a government's, just real simple terms here. It's basically what's the market rate, but it's only market rate for government payers, and that is slipping. They would like to say what's an all-persons rate, all payers. And so that's our goal. Our challenge is we came forward last summer with a recommendation that was pretty comprehensive. It dealt with all hospitals, but it was moving a lot of money. And so what in the next 2 months, what we'll be examining with hospitals and systems and the Gov's office and all that is to say, what parts of that plan can we implement, knowing that to do the full Monty, if you will, has been shown very plainly to us, even with glide slopes that we've talked about and socialized and we've adjusted through that feedback. They're not quite comfortable to get behind that. And I respect that. I hear that. We're not sort of hard charging. In closing, I would say doing nothing, though, is not acceptable either, because if it's a 30-year-old problem in the making, only more time is going to create those complications further. So we must stay at the table. We must keep hearing one another, making common sense common. So.
Follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you sharing that for the committee's benefit. Maybe help as well, too, before I offer a final comment. As we're talking about this process, obviously July 1's not the game plan at this point. Is there anything pushed from CMS or others that are saying we need to move this forward faster?
Mr. Chair, I mean, I really this is my personality come out in this answer. I don't like regulatory authority to be a reason to go forward. I like, let's find good solutions that, adjust to the fact that all of us are living with a finite amount of monies in state government that we can work with, and is there a more equitable way to put that out there? But it is fact that CMS could exercise, they pay well over half the boat here, even with the adjusted FMAP, that they could become a little more engaged in the process and sort of behoove us to move faster. Our goal is to do this in South Dakota terms and South Dakota ways, but I think we have to be honest about that as a possible, third-party force that could come into this ongoing dialogue.
That makes sense. And like I said, I appreciate your comments, Mr. Secretary, and I know, like I said, for the benefit of the committee for the Medicaid work group, I know there will be more conversations coming up from this work group or from the Appropriations Committee about utilization, how we can dive into that. Again, just appreciate your time, and I know for our goal and our purposes, what we try to look at with this is across all the provider groups that receive Medicaid services, what is sort of the quote-unquote worst-case scenario of what is the top-end number we might have to get to broadly talk about how much we need to fund. And so I know when we look at that, we try to start out with an inflationary target that is out of reach and set that market, that ceiling. But I hope that for the benefit of our committee, we've done I think a good job as a work group, and appreciate the work group members and our staff, as well as your time, the provider groups who came together to offer some more clarity. So thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Any other questions? All right. Do you want to close us out, and then I'm open it up to testifiers?
Just, if I could just, hard to believe I'd have to append what I just rattled off here. I'm sorry, Representative Mucky, but there is this reality, rural health transformation is here. And I think my urgency is driven on, I don't like the fact that, we have some discrepancies across even critical access hospitals, how some are paid. I'm loathsome towards this comment, winners and losers, but we have those today. And that's something that I just want to be forthright about. That's my biggest urgency. But rural health transformation dollars, I want to assure this committee that under Heather's leadership, one of the initiatives that we designed was really with all of these hospital methodology modernizations in mind. So I think it is, the moment is now. How we go about it has not been determined. When we accomplish it, when we get to an updated methodology, has not been defined. But what we do know is that the moment to deal with it and roll up our sleeves and hear one another, get common sense comment, all that is now, is what I would say rural health transformation. And with that, Mr. Chair, I just sincerely appreciate the effort of the committee to understand the many working parts of the department and our efforts to lift up individuals that are relying on our safety net in our state. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Open it up for testifiers. Anyone in the room that would like to testify? Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Terry Dosh. I serve as Executive Director of the South Dakota Council of Community Behavioral Health. And I can't hardly wait to hear what I have to say to you this morning. I guess the first thing I would do, Mr. Chair, is acknowledge that we're extremely thankful for the opportunity to have presented before the Medicaid Community-Based Services Work Group. I think we had a chance to lay out our data and to express what our needs are in conjunction with that. And so I don't intend to lobby you hard today with the same information. I think the work group already has that. I think it would be a good idea maybe for me to remind you a little bit of what we're about, what we do. I basically represent 11 community mental health centers, 10 of which also provide alcohol and drug treatment services, and then an additional 8 comprehensive non-CMHC alcohol and drug treatment facilities. We formulate, working together, a virtual system that spans our state. Some of the stuff I would want you to know is that in doing that, we do the state's work. We contract with the state of South Dakota in order to provide services to South Dakota's most seriously mentally ill adults, children and their families who are experiencing serious emotional disorders, individuals that suffer from substance use disorders and serious addictions. We largely deal with that segment of the population that is indigent and doesn't have ability to pay for these services. We take great pride in formulating a safety net which helps move these people beyond hindrances to care, puts them on recovery plans, helps them get their life resettled and become productive citizens, at the same time safing our communities and enhancing the quality of life in the communities in which they reside. That's what we do. You need to know that we do that in effective partnership with the Department of Social Services, specifically the Division of Behavioral Health. I know all these people that are sitting behind me, and you can go to bed tonight rest assured knowing that they're good stewards. They have a difficult job. They play 3 roles at least. One is to be a steward and a manager of the money that goes to support those services. Another is to regulate us, because we're a heavily regulated system of care which we invite. And the reason I invite that is because we are dealing with some of the most vulnerable individuals in the state, and we're also using taxpayer money to do that. And the other thing that they do is they're co-advocates with us. They make sure that people get the care that they need. We're supposed to work together to ensure that there are no gaps in services, people have meaningful access, and we're fulfilling our mission. Now, there's one other idea I want to pitch to you here. Part of our goal is to provide these services at the lowest, most clinically appropriate level of care. We want to ensure that if we can do prevention work, that's being done. If we can do early identification and intervention, that precedes reliance on higher levels of care. Most of the services that we provide are outpatient services. They're non-hospital services. And we also provide some limited residential care. I would posit to you that if we really want to be wise in working together in partnership with the legislature in terms of making the best use of the taxpayer money, that should be what we strive for together, to take care of people at the lowest, least expensive level of care, to take care of them when they're in crisis before that sprouts into a full-blown lifelong disability of some type, or even more horribly, a loss of life. The people that I work for literally save lives every single day, and we're very proud of that. So the thing I would also want to remind you of is that we're not just a Medicaid provider. We also access dollars that come from general funds and also come from block grants and other grants to come together to formulate the total dollars that we received for supporting these services. If you go across all of my members, you'll see that we're very heavily reliant on state contract to support the services that we provide. If you take a look at our revenue streams, generally about 75 to 90%, trending more toward 85% these days, of all of our revenue streams, resources from these state contracts. So we're heavily reliant on being able to access those contracts in an effective way to support primarily our staffing needs. The way we get work done is through application of treatment and support services using people, especially qualified behavioral health professionals working in care teams. So I would like to share with you that in our view, and always meeting our needs over time, the key thing is to have a sufficient rate structure so that it's not only important to allocate the dollars that we draw from, but it's absolutely essential that we can access those through a meaningful rate. We have to be able to access that funding one billable service at a time. Right now, I'd share with you that in our view, based on our own surveys locally and how we're competing in the marketplace for behavioral health professionals, that's already a profession that has a dearth of supply. Everybody's competing with them, and everybody wants nurses. But we're finding right now that we're lagging behind in the marketplace, trying to be competitive, 9 to 15%. And we're asking people to serve the most seriously mentally ill and seriously addicted people in the state, people that oftentimes many professionals don't want to work with. And I'd also point out to you that we provide services on a 24/7 basis. So there's a lot of reasons why we have to be an effective competitor in the marketplace to stay staffed. Right now, we're not staying staffed. Without going into too much detail, I already shared with the committee that if we were to move to 100% of methodology today, and if we were to get a meaningful Medicaid inflation to go with that, we would need about a 7.45% increase total, combined across the board, to get us up to where we need to be. Well, I'm happy to sit with the other providers here and to trust in the work group's judgment. I guess I would ask the work group to consider that 97 percentile, because that would probably benefit us somewhat anyway. Last year, we got 1.25% inflation, and that was it. And I can tell you that this year, if it's 0%, we're going to have to cut something back. We're going to have to work with the department to reduce services. And the other thing I'd like to share with you is here we are sitting at an epoch when saving dollars is a good thing for the state. And as I watch what's happening right now in the carceral setting, after we just built a new prison, I can see where a lot of that's heading right now. They're looking for improving behavioral health care for people who are inmates in the state prison to try to reduce recidivism upon their return back to community. I'm also seeing that there's going to have to be a strong system in place in order to support the reentry services. Doesn't it make sense to look at that earlier dimension and to try to curtail carceral placement of some of those people in the first place by interdicting their risk in advance? So in largesse of some of the other bigger stuff that's going on, let me also explain that we're really happy to be part of this Rural Health Transformation Program too. But I picked up from talking to a few people that they think, well, you guys are going to be good for 5 years now. You got it. You got this. That money is one-time money. That money is not going to be able to be used to support our core services, just so we're clear on that moving forward. Yes, that will help build capacity to build those regional resources and to take a look at the prospective payment model, and we're willing to look at transformation. But as we head into that, we need to go in semi-whole anyway. We can't go in understaffed and with our core services at risk, taking additional risk as we explore that transformational model. I'd liken it to you by saying we can't be standing in a hole out in the middle of the prairie. We have to be made somewhat whole. And I think it's in the state's interest not to be foolish on the front end with your investments, investing in people, but also investing in the state's dollars and making best use of those. So I just have one last thing that I want to say, Mr. Chair, and here it comes. With regard to the money that's been proposed to be moved to support the one-stop, I've just explained to you that we have need right now. Yet it's been proposed for $1.125 million to be moved from the behavioral health base into a different base that's going to be used to support administrative services. Now, you're going to do what you need to do. I realize that. But I'm bound to sit here before you today and to say that I think that stinks. Because we could potentially look at that money as some solution moving forward. If you want to know solutions where the money could come from, let us access that by making sure that our rates are adjusted closer to a meaningful level so we can access that. That's all I want to say about that, Mr. Chair. So subject to that, I'd stand by for any questions that you might have. I know I took a lot of time, and I apologize for that.
No worries. Thank you, Mr. Dosh. Any questions? Very good. Please stand by. Additional testifiers. Oh, did I miss a question? Senator Foster.
I don't so have, I mean, it's more of a statement. Should I hold that for later, or it's just regarding some of the things that was said just now?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I feel Mr. Dosh's frustration, and I am extremely, extremely frustrated. The fact that we are committing attrition on behavioral health seems like it's very frustrating to underfund behavioral health when there is such a high need, and the the outcomes are, I mean, the long-term outcomes, lifelong issues, prison, loss of life. And it's because of insufficient rate structure that we end up having this excess funds. Then there seems to be the intended, benefit of underfunding these so that the one-stop can be paid for. And I think that that really needs to be revisited. I think that we are doing a disservice to South Dakotans and to our future, considering these prisons and the outcomes that were discussed already. And I just think that that should not be brushed over.
Yeah. Representative Bucky, did you have a question? No. Okay. Thank you, Senator Foster. Introduce yourself, please.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Justin Smith. I represent the South Dakota Association of Youth Care Providers. I always enjoy following my colleague, Mr. Dosh. All of the testimony that he gave can be repeated to the same extent for all the members of the youth care providers. So who is our organization? It's your hometown providers like McCrossin Boys Ranch, Abbott House, Our Home, and a lot of others that provide incredible services to some of the most vulnerable children in the state of South Dakota. This is behavioral health for children, psychiatric residential treatment facilities, intensive residential treatment facilities. These children who depend on these Medicaid-funded programs through these public-private partnerships are truly some of the most important and, again, vulnerable members of our state of South Dakota. So we truly appreciate being included in the work group. And we would echo everything the work group is recommending in terms of an increase so that we can make sure that our programs continue to be funded and that we do not have to stop providing these valuable services. Again, I don't want to repeat what Mr. Dosh said. All of it can be applied equally to these children participating programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Northrup.
Somewhat of a delayed comment, but in an effort to continue to beat a dead horse. Disappointed with what went on with One Stop in that that 30-year contract was signed without legislative approval, and the funding has got to be coming from services that could have been provided and will not be. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any additional testifiers?
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Liz Schenkel. I represent Community Healthcare Association of the Dakotas. We are the primary care association for federally qualified health centers in both North and South Dakota. In South Dakota, federally qualified health centers serve over 126,000 patients, many of whom are residing in some of the most rural, frontier, and underserved communities we have. We are currently operating at 60% of cost as determined by the DSS rate study that was recently conducted, and we are incredibly grateful for the time the Medicaid work group through the Joint Committee on Appropriations has spent to help us chart a path forward, and we are incredibly supportive of the recommendations to both include federally qualified health centers in the reoccurring rate review, as well as to make sure that we are able to eliminate service reductions and site closures as a result of our current underfunded status. So thank you.
Thank you. Additional testifiers? Okay. Any additional testifiers? Any further discussion from the committee? Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I reflect the same views of our colleagues who just spoke from our committee on this issue. I think it's important to continue to focus on that as part of the work group's recommendations to review this. We cannot afford, literally, to walk away from our utilization of our services. We got to provide them, and so I encourage the committee as we go closer and closer towards our final days of motion sheets and our conversations about the budget to make sure that we're keeping that at front of mind. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Any further discussion from the committee? Okay, well, at this time, we will recess until 11 o'clock and come back for the Department of Education. Thank you.
SDPB brings you closer to your government. with gavel-to-gavel coverage of the South Dakota legislature and in-depth reporting from Pierre. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From early learners to lifelong students, SDPB inspires curiosity through trusted educational programs and resources for every stage of life. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. When South Dakotans need reliable information, SDPB is there providing updates and coverage that keep our communities safe and connected. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB celebrates South Dakota's student athletes with live coverage of SDHSAA state championships, sharing the excitement of hometown heroes. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. From choir to debate to theater, SDPB shines a spotlight on South Dakota's talented students through SDHSAA All-State Fine Arts programming. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. Every day, SDPB connects South Dakotans with stories that inform, inspire, and bring us together. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB is your home for fact-based journalism, connecting South Dakotans with news they can trust and stories that matter. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. From children's programs to in-depth documentaries, SDPB sparks curiosity and lifelong learning in every South Dakotan. SDPB. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB brings South Dakotans together, telling the stories that unite small towns, big ideas, and the people who make our state shine. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB. SDPB shares the voices and experiences of South Dakotans, preserving our stories, our culture, and our sense of place. SDPB, good, useful, and full of wonder. As South Dakota's public media network, SDPB serves everyone with transparency, integrity, and commitment to open access. Good, useful, and full of wonder. SDPB.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Joint Committee on Appropriations, and we are going to move in and pick up our budget hearing for the Department of Education. We're going to pick up right where we left off from last time, and we appreciate Mr. Secretary coming back. Please introduce yourself and your team that's here today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My name is Joe Graves, Secretary of Education, and yes, I have the full team here of all 10 of our divisions. So I'm going to look back here. So I have Cody Stozer, the Director of the Division of Finance and Management, Linda Turner, Division Director of Special Education and Early Learning, Laura Scheibe, the Deputy Secretary, and have I missed anybody? No? All right, thank you. Yeah, so sorry, I'll just start up where we left off, which was, we just have a couple slides left. This is state aid to special education. We had our biennial rebase of special education, which is found in statute 1337-35.2, and that created an increase of $2,860,236. The total state share and ongoing budget for this would then become $105,910,139. And that information can be found on pages 18 through 21 of the LRC budget brief detail. At level 1% of the state fall enrollment changes from 10.62% to 10.84% with the biennial rebase. Levies calculated at 1.229 for the 2027 recommendation, and that is a reduction from 25, which was 1.262. Additionally, there is a set aside there for the extraordinary cost fund of $4 million. And so the extraordinary cost fund is that fund which we provide to school districts they can apply to if they have had certain conditions met in their special education fund and they're having problems budgeting. Those can be high-cost students, high-cost programs, and then one other additional supplement they can apply for. So we have a number of districts who do apply for that each year because they happen upon a student who was particularly expensive, had a particularly expensive program, and it was harming their ability to budget for that amount.
Mr. Secretary?
Yes.
I have a question. Hopefully I can explain it. So how often do we rebase special education? How often?
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we're currently in the rebase year? Is
Correct.
that correct? And in the past, in a rebase year, we have not budgeted for cost of living for COLA, but we are this year, when we usually don't do it in a rebase year.
So I'm going to turn to either Ms. Turner or Mr. Stozer for that.
Morning. Mr. Chair, Cody Sosa, Director of Finance Management. Whenever we do a rebase, we include those cost of living adjustments on there. When we do those, we increase those years on those. So when we do that rebase, so we're going into the rebase year for this next year. So that's setting the disability levels for the next 2 years.
Okay, I just had a question on that. Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Senator Foster.
Thank you, Chair. So you mentioned that the extraordinary cost fund sits around $4 million. My question is, how is that funded? Like,
Mr. Chair. Yes, that is funded through the State General Fund.
Okay, thank you. Continue.
Very good. With that, I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is sparsity. Oh.
Representative Moore. We'll talk later.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a question, Dr. Graves. Are we putting enough in the fund to cover the needs of the school districts? That would be my question.
Mr. Chair. So the fund, if I remember correctly, began at about $3 million. It was increased at one point to $4 million. The ECF board has typically kept certain surplus dollars from the previous year. And so what I would note is that in FY 2023, we spent $4,066,225 out of a $4 million allocation. And that, again, we had overhead. In FY 24, we were at $4.6 million. FY 25 spent $4.45 million. Now, that number was actually, we had more of a request that year than we paid out. In previous years, we've always been able to meet the requests for the most part. In 2025, the board looked at that and said, all right, number one, we can't meet all the requests. So they paid out one of the requests and then paid 90% of the rest. And additionally, they kept a certain number of dollars back because they wanted to make sure they had at least a little bit more of a cushion, more than $4 million for the FY 2026 year, which of course will be allocated this spring. So that's the best I can tell you about whether enough was allocated.
Senator Foster.
thank you, Chair. So as far as unfunded requests, is this on a reimbursement rate, or are these requested prior to meeting the needs of the student?
Mr. Chair, meeting the needs of the student through the IEP process is independent of budgetary considerations. So the staffing committee comes, a typical process would be the parent requests that their child be evaluated. The evaluation results in a designation of a disability. Then we have the IEP team, the staffing team would get together and make some decisions on what kind of a program can we offer this child, what does this child need. The staffing committee doesn't necessarily look at budget requests. Then the budgets become the issue for the special education director, the superintendent, and the school board. So yeah, those two decisions are made largely independently.
Can you give me an example of what a result would come from an unfunded request?
Mr. Chair, several possibilities. Typically, when a request is made, the school district who comes to the extraordinary cost fund has to already be levying at the maximum amount. And they also have to be within a certain percentage of a limit of their budget. Typically, a school district, when they come to us, they haven't exhausted their budgets down to zero. They're not down to the point where they have no money left at all. But what they're doing is they're approaching a concern about a limit that they're not going to have enough dollars. So when that is not met, it does not change the services provided to the student. It simply provides less money than the district was requesting, and then they need to make budgetary decisions at that point.
Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And maybe just for the benefit of the committee, Secretary Graves, as we're talking about the levels of disability, can you give us kind of a high-level overview of what those differences are, just so we're understanding the cost basis?
Mr. Chair? Yes, to do so, I'd like to have Linda Turner, our Division Director of Special Education and Early Learning, join me.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'm Linda Turner from the Department of Education, Special Education and Early Learning. And you would just like an overview of the disabilities?
Could you lean into the microphone
Yep.
a little, please? Thanks.
An overview of the disabilities by level?
Yep, just as a general overview, if you can.
Yes. Level 1 disabilities include specific learning disabilities, speech and language impairments, other health impairment, and developmental delay. Generally, those are our students that are in the regular classroom the majority of their day with appropriate accommodations and supports. They may be removed for part of the day to receive some services outside of the classroom, but for the most part, their needs can be met in that general classroom setting. Our level 2 disabilities are emotional disability and cognitive disability. They are a little bit higher need and require a little bit more intensive supports. Level 3 disabilities include deaf blindness, hearing loss, orthopedic impairment, vision loss, deafness, and traumatic brain injury. Level 4 disabilities are autism spectrum disorder, and this is one of the categories that is increasing on our child count. Level 5 disabilities are multiple disabilities. In order to be counted for funding purposes in the multiple disability categories, they have to have 2 or more disabilities that fall in the level 2, 3, or 4 category. So to be multiple disabilities, you have 2 disabilities that their needs need to be met. It could be specific learning disability and an emotional disability together. However, in that case, that's a level 1 disability and a level 2 disability. They wouldn't receive state aid for multiple disability funding. In order to receive multiple, they may have to have an emotional disability and a hearing impairment, a level 2 and a level 3 disability. And then level 6 is prolonged assistance, and those are our birth to 3 students who are going to have more intensive needs and will most likely be in the special education services throughout their educational career, so we start those services with the district sooner.
Thank you, and thank you for giving the overview. I think the one question I was going to ask in addition to that, as we're looking at level 1 and level 2 being probably the largest portion of our disability population for special education purposes, what is the core difference between level 1 and level 2 at this point in time? Can you share? I mean, I know you talked about cognitive disability versus, level 1 being most in the classroom. What's sort of the cutoff line, if you will, for the change?
So we look at multiple Mr. Chair, we look at multiple factors when this was created, and that's the amount of services they receive, the amount of related services they may need, the amount of time they spend away from their peers. And so specific learning disabilities, speech language impairment, other health impaired, and developmental delayed. These students just need, in general, not all of them, there are always exceptions, but in general, their needs can generally be met in the regular classroom, receiving accommodations like maybe being read aloud to, having preferential seating closer to the teacher, having notes provided, at high school so they can follow along with the notes during a lecture, those types of accommodations, and then some targeted instruction on goals related to their specific either in academic or behavioral needs. And those may be provided out of the classroom for a short period of time, or they can be provided in the classroom.
Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just kind of following up on that. So the per student allocation, is that above and beyond? And I know we don't do per student allocation, but this is in addition to the normal funding for these students, correct?
Mr. Chair. So special, and please jump in, Dr. Gersh. They receive their general funding allocation. Level 1 disability does not receive a per individual student allocation. It's based on 10 point something percent of the overall group. Then level 2 through 6 are individual student allocations. All of those All of those funds, though, go into the general pool for special education to provide student services for all the students.
Okay, follow up. Okay, so now I'm just a little bit more confused. If you, and I apologize, because it does have a per student allocation for the level one. So I just really kind of want to know, because a lot of what she mentioned, there isn't a cost associated with some of what she mentioned, taking care of the kids under level one disability. So then my broader question is, how exactly do you calculate the cost necessary for these?
Mr. Chair, Cody Stoser, Department of Education. So the level one is calculated at 10.82%, so their overall enrollment in that district area. So they take into account the public enrollment, homeschool enrollment for that, and non-public enrollment. And they get to count 10.82% of that to get to their amount for level one.
So are we saying that level one is really not based on any actual cost?
Mr. Chair, based off the calculations that's set forth, that's how it's calculated. So you can make that assumption that's that, but we do have the calculations in that level one disability to come up with the per student amount. So now you're trying to get by what if a kid has level one and not being served or whatnot. That's different conversations.
Well, follow up. No, yeah, but now I'm just concerned that we're just handing out money with no basis in reality as to what the actual cost is. So for level 2 through 6, is it based on actual cost?
Mr. Chair, again, every disability level is based off the 3 years, 3-year average of those, every disability level. So they do have actual costs in there. And that's how we come up. Now the schools would only get, for level one, again, it's 10.82% that they get to claim on for that total disability, because then if you do full amounts, you're going to be overpaying for that level disability. So that's why it's set at 10.82% of the population or enrollment.
Follow up.
Representative Auk.
Thank you. I just want to be completely clear before you go sit down. Sorry. Did I hear you correctly say that level one is based on students enrolled in the public school, students who are homeschooled, students who are in non-public schools? Is that correct? So it's based on the total population of students K through 12, or can you further elaborate on that? Because it's 10.82% of whom? Can you please be more detailed?
Mr. Chair, yes, we take into account, again, the total enrollment of the public school district, the homeschool count for that district area, and the non-public count for that district area. Because we give those credits because those kids could come in to get services at a public school in any disability level. Mostly with level one, maybe not, but with other disability levels, they're probably coming into the school district to get those services. So we have to take into account those accounts for those students if they come into the public school district to get services for any disability level.
Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You say probably coming in for services. Do we not keep track so that we could accurately? Because maybe this statute needs to be relooked at.
Mr. Chair, so if they go into the school, they're tracked. You know, so a homeschooler comes into the school district would count them on their Infinite Campus data or whatnot. They get tracked that way. So then we get those tracking mechanism that way. So non-public schools, they enter their data. It's easier to get non-public enrollment data than it is the homeschool because of the law that was passed a couple years ago on homeschool that they don't only provide a certain amount of information. So we run our calculations to include the homeschool of what we can provide based off that, of what we know of homeschoolers is, and then what we get from the non-pub, and then what we have for the public school enrollment to come up with this amount.
And just to add that, if I could, a student who comes in from a private school or a non-public school or a homeschool comes into for an IEP, or rather for services, say in learning or speech and language disability, they are put on an IEP, they go through the whole process, so those students are definitely tracked.
Follow up. Does your agency evaluate this based on actual need? I need to know from the taxpayer's perspective that we're not just using arbitrary numbers. Do you take the time to go to reevaluate and possibly you should be asking us to relook at these statutes? I don't know. We know roughly 91% of the kids in the state are public school. At least that's what we had on our desk the other day on a handout or something. So 9% are other. I mean, do you stop and then go, okay, is this the right amount that we should be doing for level 1 disability? Should we be relooking at this statute? I need some reassurance from the taxpayer's perspective that we're not just throwing money at this and never reevaluating if this is a right method for doing this.
Mr. Chair? Yeah, so we'll definitely see what kind of a better response we can give you. I will say that for those students at those levels, the allocation is given. Right now, the services are being widely used. For example, I know that level 1 makes up 52. Level 1 makes up something like 64% of students. So I mean, it's a very extensive group.
Representative Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Graves, so if you have students that are homeschooled or students that are in a private school or charter school, whatever, and they find out at the homeschool level or at the private school level 3/4 of the way or 1/4 of the way through the year that student needs some sort of disability education. Okay, but prior to that, they are not figured into the school formula for that district as far as the public school, because they're not going to that public school, correct? So how do you figure that on that disability level when that student comes in with 3/4 of the year left going forward? And because you start out with a calculation of this, how much we figure we're going to have, but then you might have some students that come in halfway through the year or prior to that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, yes, it's actually the same situation as occurs in the public school. So we have a student who may move into the district with a disability, or we may have a student who comes in and then slowly over time, after trying a number of different interventions, say at the first grade level, the teacher says this child needs to be evaluated, you get the permission from the parent, you go in. So there are always students who are coming after the deadline, just as there are students who you begin the year with and then they move away. That's just part of the rotation of the normal student enrollments in both special education and general fund.
Okay, continue.
Thank you. I'm going to move over to the last program we have here today for you, which is Sparsity. Sparsity is a designation from the state that a school district qualifies under certain specific requirements. They need to have a fall enrollment per square mile of less than 1 student per half mile, a fall enrollment that is less than 500, a land area that is greater than 400 square miles. They must be at least 15 miles from their school to the nearest high school. They must operate a secondary attendance center, and they must levy at the maximum level. At that point, they become a sparse school. Sparse schools then receive an additional payment, and we have additional, and as well, they are actually also exempt from the 100 student minimum requirement that other schools are held to. This program recognizes the very rural nature of South Dakota. We could say, well, this is terribly inefficient that we only have 25 students at Elk Mountain, and that is how many students they have approximately. But the truth is, you still have to educate kids everywhere, and so you're going to wind up with some sparse schools. We currently have 29 school districts that meet the criteria, and we have one new one, and that is McLaughlin, qualified in FY 2026. So that's the Sparsity program. It's not a major program, but it frankly does meet a very real need in South Dakota when we have such a rural nature. So that does conclude my my remarks today, but of course I'm available for questions.
Representative Norstrip.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Some of us are getting emails that are saying the sparsity program is unfair, if I can use that word, and the basis of the argument is schools that have a fair cash balance are also getting sparsity. Is there any looking into that or comments on that?
Mr. Chair? Well, I think there's been some concern in the state of late. There's been some controversies among certain school districts. And I think that those controversies are real and exist, and they need to be settled at the local level. I don't think they necessarily call into question the sparsity factor. In fact, the legislature just last year increased the amount of the sparsity factor, and so that districts could receive an additional amount. And that came from the sparse schools. Should they have a cash balance below which they cannot fall to be in the sparsity? That has not been one of the criteria. It could be added, but they must be levying at the maximum level. So if they're levying at the maximum level and they have a high fund balance, they're going to fall into a problem with School Finance Accountability Board, who's then going to engage it that way. Could there be additional criteria to this? There certainly could be. The program seems to work, frankly, very well right now.
Follow up.
I'm a supporter of sparsity. I think it's a wonderful, necessary program, and it sounds like you've got a mechanism in place to keep things going in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, with the school accountability, I think the very top one, I have to put my glasses on, but Blunt Oneida, I think, actually had a very high cash balance. They were out of compliance, and they're actually getting sparsity funding. I think there might be another one on that list as well. And so I think that's something we talked about, trying to address going forward with the school accountability work group. So I just wanted to put that out there, but that is definitely a concern with those that have very high cash balances. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, that's a good point. What I will say is that they still can be taken into consideration on the School Finance Accountability Board, both from a cash penalty response and also from an accreditation review.
Follow up. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, my understanding is we couldn't levy cash, a fine. We couldn't levy a fine against that particular school because of, I'm sorry, I'm going to call a friend. Right, because they don't receive.
Can you please use the microphone, Representative Casson?
Right. Thank you.
To answer that question.
Mr. Chair?
Calling a friend.
Mr. Chair, yes, and so that is a consideration, but I will point out that whether or not you receive state aid is an issue independent of being sparse. I mean, we have many sparse schools that do receive state aid, we have some that don't. Because of the way the law has been written, we cannot assess a fine on a school district that does not receive state aid because state aid is how we fine them the next year for those dollars. However, we've asserted this year that can become an accreditation review concern. And so if you do not receive state aid, we would approach it through accreditation. Now, that does not mean they're going to go through a whole nother 5-year accreditation review, which we put all school districts through, or what I should say is which we provide as a service to all school districts. But what it does do, what we can do is say, all right, you haven't met the cap here, and so now we're going to sit down with you through our accreditation office and through our Division of Finance and Management and say, how are you going to fix this? And you need to provide us with an acceptable plan.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree. This is actually on the legislature, and it's actually on how we've written the law. I mean, obviously, you're following the laws as put forth by us, and that's my point. Is that something that I think we talked about in the school accountability work group, that it's something that we need to look at, especially with these schools that have these high cash balances. But I supported the sparsity increase last year, so I think it's a good thing for the state, but I do think there's some outliers. Thank you.
Senator Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Gray, refresh my memory. How do we arrive at the amount? Is that on a per student allocation, or is geography involved there? I mean, I'm seeing a lot of schools have 137,000. Others are oddball amounts. How is that arrived at?
Mr. Chair, it is arrived at through a per student allocation, and if there's more to that, I would ask Mr. Stoter to join me and explain.
Mr. Chair, Cody Stolzer, Department of Education. There is a calculation that each school district goes by per student and then their enrollment size within there. So 83, like you count 80 enrollments between 83 and 232 and you come up with, they get an amount. And greater than 232, they get it comes out to a different calculation for each one. So each one's going to be different based on their enrollment.
Follow up.
But then there are a number of schools that looks like 137,000 is the magic figure. That must be, is that a cap or is that?
Mr. Chair, that's the max set by the.
That's the max,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the max they can receive. That was up from 110,000 in previous years. So last year it was set to 137,000.
One more follow-up. And then there were several of them, or a couple of them, that saw significant decreases from last year.
Mr. Chair, that's just based on enrollment changes, how their enrollment goes within that sparsity calculation.
Oh, because, I mean, I'm just looking at the very first one, and I know that's been an issue, Agar, Blown, and Ida, but that's half. I mean, they lost half their students, or?
Mr. Chair, I don't have that info. Maybe we can provide that.
Additional questions? Mr. Secretary, you're done with your slides and your presentation now?
That's correct.
So go ahead, and then I have a question.
Thank you, Mr.
Representative
Chair.
Markey.
And this might be a follow-up conversation I could use your help with. So one of the things I know we're trying to tackle, especially as we see enrollments decline, keeping up pace. I know last session we reverted some funding just because the count for enrollment was higher than what eventually came through. Could you provide some information back to us on how much money has been reverted for state aid purposes over the past 5 years? And send that back to us as a follow-up.
Mr. Chair, we'd be happy to do so. Oh, you got it,
You do.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Just a second, Senator Foster. I think he's going to
Mr.
try
Chair,
and
Cody
answer
Stolzer.
that question.
Yeah, so I'll start with the FY 2020. We reverted 846,000 in FY 20. FY 21, $270. So we're very close. FY 22, 16,000. FY 23, 3 million. FY 24, 2.9 million. And FY 25, 2.3 million. All these numbers were below 1% reversion. So we've been pretty close on that.
Senator Foster.
thank you, and I apologize for that. So I'm just curious, has there ever been a mechanism to put this into an education fund specifically for education, or has it always just gone back to the general funds?
Mr. Chair, I'm always a little fearful of saying it never has, because the state's getting pretty old. So it may have occurred in the distant past, but in modern memory, no. There's been no additional fund like that. It's simply reversed to the general fund.
Senator Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I back you up a couple slides, Dr. Graves, to the special, state aid to special education? I apologize, I probably wasn't paying attention, but the PSA amounts, those are over and above the regular state aid allocation?
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
It's not, Cody?
No, you're
Okay.
the additional.
All right, very good. I thought you said no, so I was.
We, Mr. Secretary, we have a saying around here that there's no horse too dead to beat. And so.
Excellent.
So I'm going to revisit, as reversions have increased over the last 5 years, could you remind us what the methodology is that you go through for enrollment?
Yes, we use a number of things. We begin with the school projections. So each school, each year, sends us a projection of what they believe their enrollment is going to be in the next year. So we use those. We also look at birth rates, and we frankly look at current trends. Because if you look at the K-13 or K-12 enrollment, you have 13 years, and with the seniors going out and the kindergartners coming in, that means you still have 12 of those grades that are existing. Now, those change with transiency and everything else, but you have those data. So we look at those data as well, and we take those into account. Additionally, we try to look at homeschool numbers, non-public numbers, and those kinds of things, but those things have been jumping around, frankly, as have birth rates.
Okay, very good. Any further questions from the committee? We'll open it up. You want to close us out, Ms. Secretary, and I'll open up for testifiers. So.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you very much. I've enjoyed the process, and thank you for giving us the time to provide this to you.
Thank you for coming back. We really appreciate that. Are there any testifiers that would like to speak regarding the Department of Education? And please sign in if you do with the pages. Any testifiers today? Good morning, welcome, and please identify yourself.
Good morning. I never have to move the mic up. I'm usually the shortest one here. Good morning, Lori Dykstra with Feeding South Dakota. And I just wanted to share quickly, I was here last time. We want to thank the Department of Ed. We have an amazing relationship with the Department of Ed, and Secretary Graves' team is awesome to work with. We have I wanted to explain the connection because I have heard some questions that maybe people don't always fully understand how Feeding South Dakota works with the Department of Ed. And so we run some different USDA programs. So the USDA programs, the commodity programs, the TFAP, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the CSFP, which is the Commodity Share Food Program, which we call the Senior Box Program in South Dakota. Those programs are ran through Secretary Graves' department, and then they subcontract Feeding South Dakota to move that food across the state in all 66 counties. So we run those programs in every county in all of your districts that amazing food gets out there. Those were also the programs that were cut on the federal level last year. So we saw millions of pounds of food cut from those programs, specifically the Emergency Food Assistance Program, which that is why we had to reduce our family boxes by 50% last year. So when I was talking to you all before, I sometimes think I know all these acronyms, but you get a lot of things thrown at you. I thought it might be kind of nice to understand the connection. Though those programs are at risk to see additional cuts at the federal level, and we have already started to see some of our food distributions coming into this fiscal year, starting to see some reductions in some of the really good foods that were in there. So maybe poundage-wise it looks the same, but we're seeing reduction in our high quality proteins, milk, eggs, things that we really are sought after. So continuing to see those decline means that Feeding South Dakota has to purchase those, so it's affected our budget adversely. And so when I come back and talk to you all about funding, this is why this program has largely seen some cuts on the federal level. And we appreciate any support that you all have, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the program.
Questions? Any questions? Okay. Seeing none, thank you very much. Additional testifiers for the Department of Education. Any additional testifiers? Okay. Seeing none. Representative Mucky.
Mr. Chair, personal privilege?
Yes, granted.
I was happy to walk back into committee here just a minute ago before the Department of Education to see a friendly face wearing a bow tie. It happened to be the doctor who delivered me, so he's the doctor of the day. So thanks, Dr. Jerome. Welcome, Dr. Jerome Benz.
All right, very good. Anything else for the good of the cause? No? Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, got a lot of them here. Okay. Senator Voida, motion, seconded by Representative Sharda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for a great day.